Good evening, I'm Jim Gollin, the president of the board, and I have a very easy job tonight. It's to introduce someone you probably already know, even if you've never met her in person. How many people here, including in the back there, how many people know who Amy Goodman is? So you know her from Democracy Now!, you know a lot about her. What you might not know, a few little fun facts. I actually did a little research. You might not know that she's the granddaughter of a rabbi. You might not know that she graduated from Harvard in 1984, but didn't invent Facebook. You might not know that she started Democracy Now! In 1996 with 5 stations. And it's grown and grown and grown, and now, as of today, it's approximately 895 stations. And you might not know that she is so committed to developing independent media that she travels every week of the year around the country and around the world to hold fundraisers, not for Democracy Now!, which deserves and needs your support, but for an entire variety of small independent media organizations, and lends her voice to them. She is a woman who is never at a loss for words. Words are her power. And even though she travels, she is never far from home because the world is her home. Amy Goodman, the recipient of the Amplifying Voices Award.
Thank you very much. And it's a great honor to be here on Rand's 25th birthday. I'm very happy to see that this clock that says 5 minutes is not counting down. So I guess we have a lot of time. Here it goes. I feel like I'm on CNN, but I have about 10 times the amount of time to talk here than you do to explain the big concepts in the world. You have 10 seconds to do it. I didn't bring notes because, well, last year about this time I was going over the Canadian border to speak at the Vancouver Public Library for a fundraiser for 3 community radio stations that run Democracy Now! And when I got to the border, thought it would be routine, handed over my passport, they pulled me over, told me to go into the border facility, and then called me up and said, "We want your notes now." And I said, "What notes?" And they said, "The notes for your talk tonight." The notes for my talk, and anyone who knows me knows I don't exactly carry notes, but they didn't quite believe me. And I figured it's safer, since they then rifled through all of the notes in our car, going on our computers to figure out what it was I was going to say. It's safer just to speak from the heart. As we look at what RAN has accomplished over these 25 years, I think most importantly, it's giving a face and a place to the movements and the peoples all over the country and the world who are deeply affected by what we do here in the United States, the most powerful country on earth. And it brings me back, many years ago to 1994, when a Nigerian writer and activist was brought into our studios of WBAI in New York when I was doing Wake Up Call, the morning show before Democracy Now! And they said, they wanted him, he was brought in by another activist, to come on our broadcast. We were packed that day, and I said, "I'm sorry, we won't be able to accommodate you this morning." And they said, 1 minute, he's come from Nigeria. I said, "Okay, really, 1 minute? We have so many guests, we can't bump them." And so Ken Saro-Wiwa walked into our studio. I hadn't heard of him then. And Ken started to talk about the nexus of corporate and government power. When a corporation, the Shell Corporation, working with the government and the military in Nigeria, was destroying his homeland, the land of the Ogoni people, Ogoni land. 500,000 Ogoni people were marching, and he decided to take what they had to say about the despoilation of the earth, about the fact that the kids in Ogoni land never knew a dark night because they lived in the shadow of the flame, gassing off, the burning off of gas that led to apartment building size flames. He said, "I'm a marked man if I return to Nigeria," and that's exactly what he did. He was immediately arrested, and along with 8 other minority rights activists, on November 10th, 1995, he was executed by the Nigerian military that works so closely with the Shell Corporation, which, by the way, is our responsibility. All of these corporations, Shell, Chevron right here in your neighborhood, which I went to investigate, inspired by Ken Saro-Wiwa. I had promised myself the day I met Ken that someday I would go to Nigeria, and we investigated Chevron in the Niger Delta in a place called Elijah Land, and how in 1998 in May, when Nigerian villagers, tired of the oil spills and the destruction of the mangrove forests, went to an oil barge that was run by Chevron to demand that they get jobs, that they stop, that they clean up the spills. Nigerian military flew in, Chevron flew in the Nigerian military, and they opened fire on the villagers, killing 2 of them, critically wounding a 3rd. This story must be told in this country, as so many stories must be, as Rand does when talking about Chevron in Ecuador. It's our responsibility, because people in these countries are doing all they can. When they march, they're gunned down. When they live in their communities, they're poisoned. All it takes is us to stand up and people to speak out. It doesn't matter your political persuasion, Republican, Democrat, Green, because I really do think that mainstream America is not represented by what is called the mainstream media. The mainstream media is not mainstream, because those who are in the mainstream of this country do not believe that corporations should be treated as people. Those who are in the mainstream in this country do not believe that we should kill for oil. Those who are in the mainstream of this country don't believe that our elections should be drowning in money, that is killing democracy. And these are the voices we rarely hear in the mainstream media, because these people we're talking about are not a fringe minority, not even a silent majority, but the silenced majority, silenced by the corporate media, which is why we have to build up independent media. And it's wonderful to come to the home of KPFA land, where all of you can get independent voices. And public access TV and public TV and radio. It is so important that we have a media that provides a forum for people to speak for themselves. Let's never forget how important the media are. The most powerful institutions on earth, more powerful than any bomb, more powerful than any missile. It is our responsibility to protect it and to build it, and to ensure that when we cover war, the media isn't brought to us by weapons manufacturers. When we cover the Massey explosion in West Virginia, the news isn't brought to you by the coal companies. When we cover the BP oil spill in the Gulf, the media isn't brought to us by the oil companies. When we cover Ecuador, that the news isn't brought to you by Chevron. We need a media that's independent. And for all that we're involved with, let's build that media together that connects the dots, the voices of people all over the world. There is nothing more powerful at this point. When anyone says, what do you think of the person in the White House? Has he done his job? It is not up to one person. It is up to the movements in this country and all of the people that make up those movements to do what Frederick Douglass said, right? We all know that quote, and you can say it with me. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. It is not up to one person, and I think RAN has proved that over and over again. It is about movements. What happened in 2008, an election that changed the history of this country, was simply that a door was open a crack. The question is now whether it will be kicked open or slammed shut, and that's up to you. And it's up to us protecting a media that will save us. I see the media as a huge kitchen table that stretches across the globe that we all sit around and debate and discuss the most important issues of the day. War and peace, life and death, and anything less than that is a disservice to a democratic society. Democracy Now!